Hola chicos, ¿qué tal? Estamos con Mark Foster de Foster the People el día de hoy con nosotros, así que vamos a conversar un poquito sobre qué es lo que ha estado haciendo todo este tiempo y sobre su nuevo álbum también. Hi Mark, nice to meet you. My name is Mafe. I'm from Peru.
So good to meet you.
All right, so let's speak about your what have you been up to this years? Because I mean, it's been like 7 years since your last album with
Yeah,
Boston. So what's going on? What has been going on in all those years?
you know, God, a lot of change. I yeah, it's crazy to think about actually that it's been 7 years since the last record because um, it was 7 years from when we started the band to the last record. So it's like Torches, the band, I guess, started in like 2010, and then Sacred Hearts Club came out in 2017. And we put out all those records, toured, did all this stuff in that period of time, and then now here we are 7 years later, and it's our first time touring in 6 years. I stepped away. I kind of had to kind of took a step back and really got simple in my life. It was like, which I fell in love, and then the pandemic happened. So we all kind of lost, that was a whole other thing for all of us, right? But yeah, I feel like a different person
Okay,
now.
you say you've been living simple. So what do you mean by that? What, like, I'm guessing you acquire some new hobbies or new stuff you like to do during this whole period of time. I mean, during the pandemic, we all did pretty much.
Over the pandemic, I got obsessed with woodworking. So
With
like
working.
I built like a tool shed. I built a shed and I started to just acquire tools, and I got like stacks of books on like woodworking, like all the way down to getting like old Amish instruments from like hundreds of years ago where they were like scraping the wood by hand and like
Wow.
I know that was a weird one. And then I built some like vegetable gardens, and was like gardening outside and cooking, and really just like reconnecting with like the simple things of life. I got sober in 2018, which really kicked off this next chapter, which, because before that I was out not only on tour, but I was out when I would be home, I would be in clubs, I would be out DJing or partying or going to a house party, like all of these things. And so I was around all sorts of people, and eventually kind of I stepped away from all of that. And because of that, I fell in love, and so now it's just like, it was the last few years has been kind of quiet in the house with my wife and my dog. And I think internally, really searching, kind of having these deeper questions of exploring spirituality, exploring meditation, exploring frequencies, exploring maybe some of these more esoteric things that are totally different than the like life that I was living before, which was like, I think, necessary for this next chapter in life, because I meet all these older like rock stars or people that have been, that are stuck in the 70s or 80s or 90s or whatever, and they don't grow. It's like, it's so easy to be Peter Pan and never grow, because you're kind of told where to go. Like you're on tour and they're like, okay, lunch is at this time. This is what you can pick from a menu. You point at whatever the thing is, then you go and you play music, and then you have all these people that want to party with you afterwards, and it's really fun. It's so fun. But time goes by and you're like, where am I? Who am I? It's so easy to just to get stuck.
So would you consider that, or would you describe that being on tour, aside from the working part, that is like, you gotta play your gigs and everything, would you consider like everything else as being like in an endless vacation that you can get used to it? Like people get used to it?
So yeah, so yes. So it's really interesting because there's actually therapists, there's specialized therapists out there that will help crew members or people that have been on tour for years to actually like become civilians again because they get addicted to that lifestyle. And yeah, it's very easy, I think, to time. It's a time warp. They can like time gets weird. It's almost like when you go to a casino and like there's no windows and like they're pumping oxygen in and it's just like you don't know what time it is because it's like yeah, it that can happen. And it's, look, it's an incredible thing when the relationship to it is aligned in a healthy way.
Right.
But if the relationship to it becomes unhealthy, it can be kind of a weird existence for sure.
Well,
Um,
it's a good thing that you've learned how to live your like simple and you have another vision completely from life, before going on tour again. And actually you can get to share your experience with your crew and the people who's around you
yeah.
during this new era. But let's speak about your new album, Paradise State of Mind. So what's the story behind it?
I'd say that the record it kind of started as a study on the 70s and like kind of the disco synth funk kind of Prince, Chic, Giorgio Moroder, all the early disco stuff, the Bee Gees, ABBA, whatever. It was really fun to kind of dive into that. And then really, like, the intention was to make something hopeful and honest, really. After being gone for so long, kind of stepping back into music, my relationship to music felt different in like to where I fell in love with it in like a deeper way. And I think because of that, I was able to be more brave with talking about the flawed parts of myself, but with hope, through the lens of hope, which I feel like in the world right now, we need hope. Like we need to be reminded that things are actually beautiful, that there are all sorts of things to be excited about, that there's all sorts of wonder around us. And that was kind of like the space that I tried to live in. Paradise State of Mind to me is about perception. So it's about, every morning I wake up, I can have a thought or I can open up my phone and see a headline of some disaster. Something terrible is happening. And my imagination can just go to, a dark place. And like, I have to pull myself back. Like, to me, it's like about knowing how to pull yourself back and be present and stay optimistic, because life is beautiful. It's like whatever we focus on is what becomes our reality. And that's kind of
Right.
what it's about.
And what made you want to bring like disco back? Because it sounds great. It sounds really like fun. But I just realized that you now have mentioned like the 70s like more than 3 times during this conversation. So is it something you like about the era? Even the video, I mean, your music video for Lost in Space, it's like 70s inspired ish. So what made you want to bring disco back and all this inspiration on that era for this album?
I think that I didn't know until I played some of the music for Nile Rodgers and we had a conversation about the early days of Chic. And when he was forming Chic, he was studying music from the 20s, from the Great Depression, because the 70s were going through this huge recession. It was after Vietnam. And so he was studying music from the Great Depression era, which was actually like the Roaring 20s were really joyful. The music was like bringing people together. It was about dancing. It was about having a good time. And when he talked about that a light bulb went off for me where I was like, that's why I wanted to make a record that sounded like this, because here we are 50 years after the 70s, and there's economic tension, there's a lot of fear in the air. And what's the way to combat darkness? It's like you got to turn on the light. You have to lean into the light, and that's what makes the shadows go away. And so so for me, it was, I wanted to make something that felt hopeful, as a response,
Right.
joy as an act of defiance.
Right, to everything that's going on or has been going on during these years. Okay, so I also read that you are going to be, well, you said you're going to be on tour, but you're also going to be around South America for the Lollapalooza. So how do you feel about being back on festivals?
Oh man, I I'm excited to connect with people. It's over the pandemic, when it was really quiet and I hadn't toured for a few years, I had this recurring dream. And in the dream, I would be backstage getting ready to walk out to play a show. And that feeling of anticipation, there's nothing like that. And I would have this dream where the lights would drop and you'd hear that sound, walk out on stage. And I had that multiple times, and I was just like, oh my God, I miss this. I miss that so much. And I didn't, and I was doing it for years. It was like, I'm not saying that I never took it for granted, but I just didn't realize how strange how unique of an experience that is. And over the pandemic, I was just reminded about how amazing that is. So I'm excited to connect with people. I think that it's so important right now for for groups of people to come together and be reminded of what it is to be human, what it is to be kind, to appreciate each other's differences, and like to celebrate life. We're alive. Like we get to go out and dance, and it doesn't matter what things feel like. Like put your phone down. Go. It's like we're here.
I completely agree. There's no better way than to celebrate life than with art and music and, getting together and get to just share stuff with each other. So that's a great way to do it. So what piece of advice, just to wrap up, what piece of advice would you give someone who doesn't know what to do with your life? Because I know your dad gave you a piece of advice that actually changed the course of your life. What would you tell to anyone who's going through that phase?
Mm. I would say, pay attention to what you like to do. Like, even if you don't think that you can make money off of it, because you can figure out, if you can do what you love, the money will come, if you just focus on what you love. And I think that no matter what it is, you have to work hard. Like at anything, like if you focus on whatever your passion is, if you focus on it, eventually you will find a way to where your life will form around the thing that you love. And if you don't know what to do, just make music, and you can be a starving artist like I was for a really long time, but at least it'll be fun.
Well, you don't feel like, I guess you don't feel like you're working, and that's the trick. Like you got to do something you love. But
Yeah.
you got to be like, you're great at what you do. And you're inspiration for many of us.
But I didn't want to do it. I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I could do it as a career. The conversation you mentioned with my dad, he was the first person to be like, hey, why don't you try this? Like, I never considered it, and I think that I was too worried about survival or whatever. I didn't think that music was a career, because where I came from like a working class town in Ohio. There was no dream of anything. Like I came from a town of builders, people that built roofs, and those were my friends growing up. And so, but the thing is, like, I also think this, like, if you try to like just connect with people are what makes the world special. And so like if you love people, Like doors will open up for whatever you want to do if you bring humility into whatever you do and you stay willing to learn, stay curious about everything. um, then like life will reveal itself to you.
Right. Well, that's a great piece of advice. Thank you for sharing that with us, and I completely agree. So thank you for being with us today, Mark. It was a pleasure really meeting you, and I really hope to have you like here in Peru pretty soon. So let's hope
Uh,
for that.
Hey, thank you so much. So good talking to you.
All right.
See you
Thank you.
later.
Nice to
Bye.
meet you. Bye-bye. Thank
You
you,
too.
guys.